Hey Bulldogs, Bryant here, and in today's CCNA 5-minute video boot camp, we're going to get right to it because we've got a lot of details to cover here with Telnet, including a demo, I should say, on live Cisco routers. Now with Telnet, obviously we don't have as many details as say we do with OSPF or EIGRP, but the details we have are very, very important. And that goes for production networks as well, because I'm going to show you one real world gotcha that actually got me once, and I want to make sure it doesn't get you either on the exam or on test day. So let's go ahead and jump to our first screen here. Because one thing, of course, we got to know where to configure the Telnet connections to begin with. And that's going to be on our VTY lines, which appear near the end of the config. Now, there are 5 VTY lines on a Cisco router, even though it might not seem that way. Let me go ahead and hit our clock here. Cheated there a little bit. So let's go and bring up the live equipment, and you can see here on router 1, I'll just do a quick show config, and I'll show you the IP addresses involved here in just a moment. But I did a write arrays, so the only thing I've configured on here are a couple of lab commands and an IP address. I haven't put anything on the VTY lines, and as you can see, there isn't anything there now. But it is easy to look at that and say, well, okay, we got 4 lines. But if you count them on your hand, which is okay, just don't do it on a job interview, you can do it in the exam room, it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are actually 5 VTY lines on a Cisco router. So that's one important default. Another important default is what you don't see here. You don't see anything else. There is no default Telnet access to a Cisco router by default, and that is a very good thing, because we don't want Cisco routers to be leaving the factory with a default Telnet password to Cisco, and then when someone forgets to change it, all of a sudden they're wondering why everybody in the world can get into their router. So there is no default Telnet access into a router, so we're going to start configuring it right now. What we're going to do here on router 1, and I'll show you the IP addresses involved. 172.12.123.1 is our local IP, and we're going to telnet over to router 3 at 172.12.123.3. And nothing else has been configured on that router except the IP address and those lab commands on the console port. So first, what we're going to do is ping the remote address, because if you can't ping it, you're not going to be able to telnet to it. So we can telnet to it, ping to it, that is. Now, what's going to happen at this point if we try to telnet to that address? And you would say, well, we're not going to get in. True, but what exactly is going to happen? Let's take a look at that. Password required but none set. Notice that the connection actually says open for a moment, but then immediately comes up with password required but none set. Well, it's talking about the password on the VTY lines, and then it's going to tell you that's been closed. So let's go over to router 3, and we're going to go ahead and configure the VTY lines. You're going to need the login command, and you're going to type in password uppercase CCNA. Now, it does not matter, I want to dispel this myth, it does not matter in which order you put the login and password commands on the VTY lines. If you put the login command first, you're going to get this message, and it panics people the first time they see it, and that's okay, because people look at that and say they just see the login disabled part. Well, the important part is until password is set. So you haven't wrecked anything, you haven't ruined anything, you just got to go ahead and finish the job. So now we've got an uppercase password of CCNA for Telnet. So we should be able to Telnet right in. Now it's prompting us for a password. And you'll notice that not only does the password not appear as I entered it there, you don't get anything. You don't get asterisks, you don't get anything at all. It's a security feature. So now that I have telnetted successfully to router 3, everything's fine, and I'll go ahead and just type enable so I can go in and configure the router. This is what caught me once. If you want people to be able to do anything besides stay in user exec, which is where we are right now, you've got to further configure Telnet on the router that's accepting the connections. And we really have 2 options here, because what password it's looking for is literally an enable password. But there's something else you can do as well if you don't want to set one of those, and this is a pretty common command. I would expect this to show up on your command, on your exam, that is, in one fashion or another. Privilege exam, nice try. privilege level 15. This is a custom privilege level, and what you've done is taken it from the default of 0 all the way up to 15, and you're basically telling the router when someone telnets in, just let them in and put them in enable mode and let them do what they want. So you got to be careful with that command in production networks. But let's telnet over now and see what happens. I'm going to be prompted for the password, of course. Uppercase CCNA, and notice that big difference now. Now I'm in privileged exec mode. And if I want to start running show commands or jump to config mode from there, I can do it. Now again, that's a very important exam topic and a very important production one as well, because it's not something you necessarily want to do on a production router. That's pretty serious, because in this config, anybody who knows your telnet password is going to be able to telnet in, and they'll immediately be put into the highest privilege level possible. So in future videos we will definitely take a look at that, but again, by default your telnet users are placed into user exec mode where they really can't do much of anything. It might be good, that might be what you want, but it might be bad, especially if you and I as the network admins are the telnet users. So privilege level 15 is one way to get around that. And you can also, of course, set a separate enable password. And that is it for today's 5-minute video boot camp. Be sure to check out my YouTube channel for plenty of additional videos. Give me 5 minutes or less and I'll teach you a valuable new Cisco skill. See you next time.